Be with you all. I need some comforting too during the sermon today. Well, the passage that we have just read moments ago from John 14 is the continuation of what is called the Jesus farewell discourse from chapter 13 through chapter 17 in the book of John. I think some of the questions that Jesus tries to answer or try to address for the disciple is, one, with a lot of anxiety, a lot of, with Jesus' impending death. That's the background of chapter 13. And also, Jesus going away. There's a lot of anxiety in the air. So what are they going to do after Jesus has left? So that's one of the things that Jesus tries to address. And the question, the answer that Jesus gives is pepper the dog. That is, God's comforter will come. And then the Holy Spirit will come, and then the Holy Spirit will be around us, and then the Holy Spirit will reside within us, and we will know the Holy Spirit, and so we would see the Holy Spirit. And then Jesus also said, I will not leave you orphaned. I'm coming to you. And then because I live, you also will live. So a lot of very comforting verses, comforting words that Jesus says for the disciples at the moment, but also for all of us who do not know how to address our own anxiety. Jesus says, I'm coming. I will always be with you. I'm your comforter. So whenever, next time when we're in the time of anxiety, remember, pepper the dog. Well, better yet, remember the Holy Spirit. But there's still another question that we often want to address to is, how do we experience Jesus' presence in our life? What does that mean to say that Jesus is risen and that Jesus still lives and Jesus is in us? And through Jesus, we also experience God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There are a number of things in this text that I think could help us to continue to meditate on this topic, something that we have addressed in the last few weeks. I have 3 points that I would like to share. The first point I'd like to share is the word see. What does it mean to see Jesus? Seeing Jesus. I would imagine that few of us actually have seen Jesus. I know through the years I've heard from members, from friends, from reading, that some people actually have some very miraculous experience of God in Jesus in a way that none of us could explain. And if that's the case for you, I want to congratulate you. That's something that not very many of us actually experience. So most of us see Jesus in a different way. The word see that is used in this passage is actually comes from the Greek word theoreo. I've talked about this some sermons ago, but that word theoreo actually is the origin of the word theater. Theater. I know that among St. Barnabas, there are members who loves drama. And in fact, a couple weeks ago, the St. Carey High School's drama play, some of our members are involved. So we know that being in a theater, watching a play is very different from watching a movie from our smartphone. Watching a movie from our smartphone is a very a solitary experience. But theater is very different. You see, one thing about seeing something in the theater is, first of all, you see something in community. You don't just see what's happening by yourself. But the other thing about seeing in a theater context is, sometimes, even when the character is not on stage, you can still see him or her. You can still sense his or her presence because of the acting, because of what's happening on stage and in the community, isn't it? But more importantly, every play accentuates characters, either fictional or real characters. When the play is good in a community, somehow that person comes alive in ways that we cannot imagine. So presence in this context of theater it's very common but also extraordinary, because what happened in the theater is somehow through the context of acting, interacting between actors and actresses, between us and the actors and actresses, something comes to life. Something touches all of us in the deepest sense, in the deepest level. Our spirit, our body, our emotion. And together we experience presence. We see something we don't normally see. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Jesus is fictitious. But what I'm saying is, when we want to talk about seeing Jesus, think about the time when we see something comes alive in theater. That's one way for us to understand see. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 and 3 is related. There are some moments in our lives together, in our community, where Jesus' presence can be felt more imminently than others. I think in this passage, there are 2 places where Jesus gives us a hint. At the beginning, Jesus says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And then I will pray to the Father, and the Father will send the Spirit, and then you will see the Spirit, while the world cannot see. But also towards the end, Jesus says, anyone who has my commandments will be loved by the Father, and then the Father will be in that person, and I will be in that person, and then I will reveal myself to that person. So that's kind of the rough translation of the first part and the last part. So do you see the commonality in these 2 verses? Keeping or having Jesus' commandments. Moments when some of us together or individually try to keep and hold on to Jesus' commandments. Those are the moments in experience where we could see, perceive, understand Jesus' presence in a prominent way. He says, what is Jesus' commandments? What are Jesus' commandments? Now, Book of John is different from Book of Matthew. Another book, in Book of Matthew, Luke, and Mark, we read about Jesus said, love your neighbors, love your enemies, and all those kinds of things. And then, of course, the 10 Commandments. But John doesn't get into a lot of that. Except there's one place I feel that Jesus talks about his commandments, or one commandment in a special way. In chapter 13, right before this chapter, at the beginning of that, is where Jesus washed the disciples' feet on the night before his crucifixion. I think some of us are probably somewhat familiar, particularly if some of us come to the Maundy Thursday service, the night before Good Friday, and have the feet washing ceremony. And now, feet washing. And Jesus said after the feet washing, Jesus said, I have a new commandment for you. Love one another. And I believe what Jesus is saying is, while I don't list all the commandments in front of you, but watch what I have just done. I have just washed everyone's feet. So what does that mean when we try to love one another in manners that align with Jesus' feet washing? Well, certainly the easy part is servanthood, serving one another. But there's something about feet washing that really is worth our attention. About 10 years ago, when I worked for a global mission unit of our denomination, had a chance to visit northern part of India with a group of people. And there, we were introduced to a real feet washing ceremony. It's a tradition that I believe came before that particular tribe, if you will, before they received Christianity. So it's a tradition where, just like in the ancient biblical time, where hosts would wash guests' feet when they came to their house for dinner after a long journey. I have to say that, the experience of my feet being washed in that context was at once very uncomfortable. I don't want to take off my shoes, particularly when it's very hot, but also very humbling, very moving. Now, feet, okay? As a guy, let me talk about feet as a guy. And guys, I don't think we like to talk about feet, right? Now, if I were a bodybuilder, which I'm not, I want to talk about other parts of my bodies, right? My tricep, bicep, nothing to show. That's why they put on this big robe. And even for bodybuilders, they want to show off other parts of their physique, but feet. Now also think about feet in the context of the ancient time, and not just ancient times, but in many places today in the world, where people have to do hard labor, where fancy footwear, protective gear is nowhere to be found, where people have to be on their bare feet, farming and doing all kinds of hard labors. Feet is the part of the body that nobody wants to talk about. People ignore feet is the part that hurts, and feet is really the part that nobody wants to deal with and address. And yet Jesus says, wash one another's feet. What Jesus is telling us is hold into our hands and our hearts the part in the others that are often forgotten, often hurt, often the part that nobody wants to talk about, but yet hurtful to worry, and reminds me of a beautiful song that Lorena sang a moment ago. That kind of haunting hurtfulness, hold that in our hands, in our hearts, in our mind together. And Jesus said, when we are doing that, you will experience my presence. But holding on to someone else's hurtfulness, to someone else's heartbrokenness, is never easy. Yesterday I was listening radio, the program that I often listen, and some may know, This American Life from National Public Radio. It's a story program in the National Public Radio station. And the story yesterday, some of them you have heard, one segment was about a psychiatrist, Dr. Esther Perel, from the East Coast. She was being interviewed by the host of the program, but during the program they also played a clip of the counseling session where Dr. Perel helped a couple in the late 50s working through their marital problems. The couple had been married for almost 40 years. They are in their late 50s. And the story has it that, most of the time they seem to be, the relationship seems to be working out well, except the last couple of years, the wife found out that for 20-some years, her husband's been cheating on her. So you can imagine, it's a very difficult kind of sessions where both husband and wife really try to embrace working things through and put the relationship back together with the help of Dr. Perel. And some of the things that it was so hard to listen to, but also very heart-touching to listen to. But one of the things as I listened through is, Dr. Perel really tried hard to encourage both of them, both husband and wife, to listen to the hurt in the other person. There's one segment where the wife really laid it out on the husband. She said, well, of the 30-some years of marriage, 22 years, where were you? And then the husband sort of shot back and said, well, there's 12 good years. In that very instance, it's something really revealing. We know that the husband really tried very hard to listen to the hurtfulness of the wife. And then the wife also know that the husband is going through a hard time. But in that section, you see what happened is, the husband, even though he was regretful, he felt terrible, he cared more about himself. He tried to defend himself rather than listening to the wife's cries. So one of the key things that I learned from that session, according to Dr. Perel, is it's really hard for the husband because while he really wants to listen for the first time in so many years to the heartbrokenness of his wife, he is working through his own absolution, his own redemption, if you will. And then the wife too, while she tries to be understanding, but she's been hurt all these years. So she came out with those statements, came out with the venom, with difficulties. You see, it's not easy to just whole people's brokenness and hurtfulness into our own hands because we have our own as well. But there were some bright moments throughout the counseling sessions where both of them really recognize that each of the other is hurtful, particularly from the husband, because he has more to work through. Those moments, when I was in those moments, I was just listening to a radio show. It's not the real session. But I felt that a sense of light coming through. I felt that the barriers dividing these two people for 40 years have been broken. I felt God's presence. I felt that God and Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is present, even though none of them, may be Christian or not, didn't matter. So people of God, Jesus, our resurrected Lord, is present. When Jesus appears in our midst, we don't know when, it's God's gift. But one thing we do know, and one thing Jesus promises is, when we hold on to God's commandments, when we embrace the notion and to follow Jesus, to embrace one another's hurtfulness, regardless of our own hurtfulness, and in spite of, but also embracing our own hurtfulness, something does happen. God does stand our own midst and say, peace unto you. So people of God, we have always had hope. No matter how hard things are, remember, never to die. But more importantly, remember that in following Jesus' commandments to wash each other's feet, we will see Jesus in a way that we will never imagine.